I bought the house when I was 26. A modest two-story colonial in a quiet suburb outside Washington, D.C. Nothing flashy. Nothing that screamed success. Just a normal house on a normal street where neighbors waved and kids rode bikes. My parents hated it. "This is what you're wasting your money on?" Mom had said during her first visit, running her finger along the kitchen counter like she was checking for dust. "A fixer-upper in the middle of nowhere? It's 20 minutes from the city," I'd replied. "It's embarrassing," Dad had added. "Your sister bought a condo in Manhattan. Your brother has that beautiful townhouse in Boston. And you're here, doing whatever it is you do. Whatever it is I do." That phrase became their favorite dismissal. They knew I worked for the government. They knew I had something to do with technology and security. But because I couldn't discuss the details, because everything about my work required classification clearance that they didn't have, they'd decided I must be doing something menial. Probably IT support, Mom had told relatives at Thanksgiving 3 years ago. You know, fixing computers and things. Entry-level forever, Dad had agreed with a smirk. My sister Jennifer had laughed the hardest. She worked in marketing for a pharmaceutical company, making good money, living in her expensive Manhattan apartment that our parents had helped furnish. "At least I can talk about my job," she'd said. "Secret government work just sounds like you're embarrassed about being a glorified tech support person." I'd said nothing. Just kept eating my turkey. The truth was more complicated than they could imagine. And infinitely more sensitive. I was a senior systems architect for the Department of Defense, specializing in cybersecurity infrastructure for classified communications networks. My security clearance was top secret/SCI with special compartmented access. The contracts I managed were worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The systems I designed protected some of the most sensitive intelligence operations in the country. And my house, my neglected fixer-upper, had been specially designated as a secure remote workspace under federal protection. The basement wasn't a basement. It was a SCIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility. Reinforced walls, electronic countermeasures, secure communications equipment, biometric access controls. I worked from home 3 days a week, managing classified projects that couldn't be discussed outside that space. The property deed had special federal annotations. The house was listed with Homeland Security's Infrastructure Protection Division. The security system wasn't from ADT. It was contracted through the same firm that protected diplomatic residences. But I couldn't tell my family any of that, so they assumed I was failing. "Still in that little house," Mom would say at every family gathering. "Still doing whatever you do. Have you thought about going back to school?" Dad would ask. "Getting an MBA? Something that could actually advance your career?" Jennifer would just shake her head sadly as if my life was a tragedy she had to witness. My brother Marcus was kinder, but even he seemed puzzled. "I just don't understand why you're so secretive about everything," he'd said once. "It makes it seem like you're hiding something." I was hiding something. I was hiding the fact that I made $240,000 a year, not including bonuses. That I had security clearances that took 3 years and multiple polygraph examinations to obtain. That the little house they dismissed was a federally protected property worth $2.8 million, with $400,000 in specialized security infrastructure that the government had helped install. But I couldn't tell them. Not because of pride. Because of law. And I'd learned something important over the years. My family's dismissal was actually useful. It kept them from asking questions. It kept them from getting too curious about what I really did. It created a perfect buffer between my classified work and my personal life. Until 3 weeks ago when Mom called with her generous offer. The career trajectory happened faster than I'd expected. I'd started at the Department of Defense as a junior analyst straight out of grad school. My master's thesis on quantum encryption protocols had caught the attention of a recruitment officer. Within 2 years, I was managing critical infrastructure projects. Within 5, I was briefing Senate committees on cybersecurity threats. The promotions came with increased clearances. Each clearance came with more restrictions on what I could discuss, where I could travel, who I could associate with. My entire life became compartmentalized. Work in one box, family in another, never the two mixing. I bought the house with my first major bonus. The location was strategic, close enough to the Pentagon for emergency calls, far enough from D.C. proper to maintain operational security. When I'd requested permission to establish a home SEF, my supervisor had been supportive. "You're working on critical timelines," he'd said. "Having secure remote access makes sense." The installation took 4 months. Contractors with top-secret clearances. Inspections from security officers. Equipment that cost more than most people's cars. When it was finished, I had a workspace that rivaled most classified facilities in the government. And my family thought I was struggling. At Jennifer's wedding, a distant cousin had asked what I did. Before I could answer, Mom had jumped in. "Government work. Very basic. She can't really talk about it because there's not much to say." The cousin had nodded sympathetically. "Well, job security is important." I'd sipped my champagne and said nothing. The irony was that I'd been briefing the Secretary of Defense that same week on vulnerabilities in satellite communication systems. My recommendations had influenced a $2.3 billion appropriation for infrastructure upgrades. I had access to intelligence that most people in government would never see. But to my family, I was the embarrassing sister who couldn't afford a nicer house. I'd made peace with it. Or thought I had. Then Mom called 3 weeks ago. I was in my office. My real office at the Pentagon, when Mom's call came through. I almost didn't answer. We weren't on bad terms exactly, but our conversations usually involved her disappointment in my life choices, and I had a classified briefing in 20 minutes. But I answered. "Sweetheart," she began, using that tone that meant she was about to criticize something while pretending to be helpful. "Your father and I have been talking. About your house. We drove by last weekend. You weren't home obviously because you're never home, and we're just concerned." I closed my laptop. "Concerned about what?" "The property looks neglected, honey. The yard needs work. The exterior could use fresh paint. We peeked in the windows and it just seems so empty. Unlived in. Because there's a classified facility in the basement that I can't explain," I thought. "Because I have motion sensors and security protocols that make the house look vacant from outside. Because everything about this property is designed to appear ordinary and uninteresting. The house is fine, Mom." "It's not fine. It's embarrassing. Your father and I have decided to help." A cold feeling settled in my stomach. "Help how?" "We're going to renovate it. While you're away on one of your work trips. It'll be a surprise. We've already contacted a contractor that Dad knows. We'll modernize the kitchen, update the bathrooms, finally make that house look like someone successful lives there." I stood up so quickly my chair rolled backward. "You can't do that." "Of course we can. You gave us a spare key years ago, remember? We still have it. And you're never there anyway, so it's not like we'll be in your way." "Mom, listen to me very carefully. You cannot enter that house without my explicit permission." She laughed. "Don't be ridiculous. We're helping you. You'll thank us when you see how much better it looks." "I'm serious. Do not enter that property." "Sweetheart, you're being dramatic. It's just a renovation. We're trying to help you because clearly you can't maintain it yourself. Your father already put down a deposit with the contractor. They're starting next week. Cancel it." "No. You need this. You've been living in denial about how run down that place is, and it's time someone helped you face reality." The briefing officer appeared at my office door, tapping his watch. I held up a finger. "Mom, I'm not asking. I'm telling you. Do not enter that house. Do not bring contractors there. Do not touch anything. We're doing this whether you like it or not," she said, her voice hardening. "Your father and I are tired of being embarrassed by your living situation. We're fixing it. End of discussion." She hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, mind racing through the implications. If they entered the house with contractors, if they tried to access the basement, if they triggered any of the security protocols. I called my security supervisor immediately. "They can't enter the property," I told Commander Patricia Walsh, Director of Facility Security for our division. "My parents have a spare key from years ago before the property was designated. They're planning to bring contractors in next week for renovations." Patricia's expression didn't change, but I saw her jaw tighten. "Have you revoked their access authorization?" "They were never given access authorization. The key is from 2019, before the SCIF installation, before the federal designation. I didn't think to collect it because I never imagined they'd try to enter without permission. That's a significant security vulnerability." "I know." She pulled up files on her computer. The property has active monitoring through Covenant Security Services. Any unauthorized entry triggers an immediate response protocol. Is that still what you want? I thought about my mother's voice on the phone. Her dismissive tone. Her absolute certainty that she knew what was best for my life, despite knowing nothing about what I actually did. Yes, I said. That's what I want. You understand the consequences. If they breach the perimeter with contractors, the response will be substantial. I understand. Patricia nodded slowly. I'll flag the property for heightened alert status. I'll also contact Homeland Security's Infrastructure Protection Division to notify them of potential unauthorized access. Given the classification level of your home facility, they'll want to coordinate response. Do it. She made several calls while I sat there thinking about how this would unfold. Thinking about my mother's absolute confidence that she was helping, that she was fixing my embarrassing life. I tried calling her back. It went to voicemail. I tried Dad. Same result. I sent texts. Do not enter my house. This is not a request. No response. I sent an email. You do not have authorization to enter my property. I am formally revoking any previous permissions. Entry without explicit authorization will have legal consequences. Nothing. They'd already decided. They were going to help me whether I wanted it or not. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in a classified briefing about infrastructure vulnerabilities when my phone vibrated with an alert from my security system. Perimeter breach. Unauthorized access. Multiple individuals. Then my personal phone started ringing. I stepped out of the briefing. What did you do? Mom's voice was shrill, panicked. There are government vehicles everywhere. There are men with guns. They said we're trespassing on federal property. I told you not to enter the house. You didn't say it was federal property. You said it was your house. It's both. I told you explicitly not to enter. You chose to ignore me. We were helping you. The contractors are terrified. There are agents checking everyone's IDs. They're saying something about Homeland Security. I heard Dad's voice in the background. Tell her to call them off. This is insane. I can't call them off, I said calmly. You triggered a security protocol by entering a protected facility without authorization. What facility? It's just your house. No, Mom. It's not just my house. It's a federally designated secure workspace with classified materials. You just illegally breached a government facility. Silence. Then, you're lying. I'm not lying. I tried to warn you. You wouldn't listen. I heard multiple voices in the background now. Official voices. Ma'am, we need you to step away from the vehicle. Sir, please keep your hands visible. What is happening? Mom's voice cracked. Why are they treating us like criminals? Because you committed a federal offense. You brought unauthorized personnel into a classified facility. We didn't know. I told you not to enter. Multiple times. You chose to disregard my explicit instructions. Dad grabbed the phone. Fix this right now. Call whoever you need to call and fix this. I can't fix it. You triggered protocols that are out of my control now. You're really going to let your own parents be arrested? You're really going to ignore me when I tell you not to do something? We were trying to help you. His voice rose to a shout. Your house looked like garbage. We were trying to help you stop embarrassing this family. Something in me went very cold. Embarrassing the family. Yes. Living in that rundown house, being so secretive about your work, never having anything to show for your life. I have plenty to show for my life. You've just decided it's not worth acknowledging. Then show us. Stop being so mysterious about everything. I can't show you. My work is classified. The house is classified. Everything about my career requires security clearances that you don't have and can't get. I heard a new voice in the background. Professional. Come. Ma'am, I'm Agent Morrison with Homeland Security's Federal Protective Service. We need to speak with the property owner. That's my daughter, Mom said. She's on the phone. Tell her this is a misunderstanding. May I speak with her, please? I heard the phone change hands. Ms. Richardson, this is Agent Morrison. We have a situation here that needs your authorization to resolve. What's the status? We have two individuals, your parents, I understand, and 3 contractors who entered your property using a key. They claimed they were planning renovations. Our response team arrived within 7 minutes of the perimeter breach. No one has accessed the secured spaces, but they did attempt to enter through the main door before our team arrived. What are my options? You can press federal trespassing charges, which, given the classification level of this facility, carry significant penalties. Or you can authorize us to process them as unauthorized visitors who made a mistake, which would result in formal warnings and permanent bans from the property. I thought about my mother's voice. Her absolute certainty that she was helping. Her complete disbelief that my life could be anything other than what she'd decided it was. Process them as unauthorized visitors, I said. But I want formal documentation. And I want the property locks changed immediately. Understood. Would you like to speak with them? Put my mother back on. Pause. Then Mom's voice, smaller now. They're saying you won't press charges. I'm not pressing charges. But you're being formally banned from my property. You'll sign documentation acknowledging that you attempted to access a federal facility without authorization. Any future attempts will result in immediate arrest. I don't understand any of this. I know you don't. That's the problem. What are you? What do you actually do? I looked at the classified briefing materials on my desk. Thought about the projects I managed, the systems I designed, the security clearances that took years to obtain. I'm a senior systems architect for the Department of Defense. I design and manage cybersecurity infrastructure for classified communications networks. My annual salary is $240,000, not including performance bonuses. My security clearance is top secret/SCI with compartmented access. The house you thought was rundown and embarrassing is a federally protected property designated as a secure remote workspace, worth $2.8 million with specialized security infrastructure. And you just tried to bring unauthorized contractors into a classified facility because you decided I was an embarrassment to the family. Silence. The agents will process your paperwork, I continued. You'll be escorted off the property. The locks will be changed. You won't be able to access the house again. Ever. Sweetheart. I told you not to enter. I explicitly told you not to do this. You chose to ignore me because you've spent years deciding that nothing I do matters. That my work isn't real. That my life is something to be ashamed of. We didn't know. You didn't want to know. That's different. I heard Dad's voice again. Let me talk to her. No, Mom said quietly. She's right. Pause. Then Dad took the phone anyway. You're really going to do this? Over a misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding, Dad. It's a pattern. You've spent 5 years dismissing everything about my career because I couldn't give you details to brag about at family gatherings. You decided I was a failure because my success doesn't look like what you expected. And when I explicitly told you not to do something, you ignored me because you've never actually respected my judgment. That's not fair. It's completely fair. How many times have you introduced me as your daughter who does something with computers for the government? How many times has Mom told people I'm in entry-level work? How many family events have you made comments about my little house and my mysterious job, like they're things to be embarrassed about? He said nothing. The agents have paperwork for you to sign, I said. Sign it. Leave the property. Don't come back. I hung up. Agent Morrison called me back 20 minutes later. Your parents and the contractors have been processed and escorted off the property, he said. The contractors are being questioned separately about how they were hired to work on a federal property without authorization. Your parents have signed acknowledgement forms and are banned from the premises. Thank you. For what it's worth, your mother was crying by the end. She kept saying she didn't know, she didn't understand. She didn't want to understand, I said. That's different. True enough. We're arranging for emergency lock changes. You'll have new codes by tonight. I'm also recommending additional signage at the property perimeter indicating federal protection status. That works. He paused. How long have they not known what you do? 5 years. 5 years of thinking you were, what? A failure. Something like that. That's rough. It's fine. I learned a long time ago that some people won't believe in your success unless it looks exactly like they expected. After we hung up, I sat in my office staring at my phone. 3 missed calls from Jennifer. 5 texts. Jennifer, Mom is hysterical. What did you do? Jennifer, she's saying you had them arrested? For helping you. Jennifer, Dad says there were federal agents. This is insane. Jennifer, you need to call them and apologize. This is family. Jennifer, I can't believe you're doing this over nothing. I didn't respond. Marcus called. I answered. What happened? He asked. Mom called me crying. Something about Homeland Security. I explained. The whole story. The classification requirements, the federal designation, the warnings I'd given, their decision to ignore me. Marcus was quiet for a long time. I didn't know, he finally said. I know. I couldn't tell you. But they've been telling everyone you were struggling. That you were stuck in some low-level job. I know. And you just let them? What was I supposed to do? Violate classification protocols to prove myself? Compromise national security so Mom could brag to her friends? No, but 5 years, sis. 5 years, I agreed. That's messed up. Yeah. Are you pressing charges? No. But they can't come to the property again. Ever. They're going to see that as you choosing your job over family. I'm choosing my legal obligations and my boundaries over their need to control something they don't understand. That's different. He sighed. Jennifer's not going to see it that way. Jennifer thinks I'm a failure too. She just doesn't say it as loudly. She doesn't think you're a failure. She thinks I can't talk about my job because there's nothing worth talking about. She's told me that. Multiple times. Hey. Fair point. Tell Mom and Dad that I'm not changing my mind. They violated federal property. They ignored explicit warnings. They face the consequences. They're going to be devastated. They were already devastated by having a daughter who didn't meet their expectations. This is just making it official. 3 weeks later, I received an email from Commander Walsh. The property security review has been completed. Homeland Security has upgraded your designation to enhanced protection status given the breach attempt. Additional monitoring has been installed. Also, the Secretary's office requested a briefing on the incident as a case study in insider threat vulnerabilities. Your handling of the situation is being cited as exemplary protocol adherence. I stared at that last sentence for a long time. Exemplary protocol adherence. My parents would never understand that phrase. They'd never understand that their helpful renovation plan had become a training example in security procedures. That their dismissal of my career had led to them being used as a cautionary tale in federal protection protocols. Marcus called that evening. Mom wants to apologize, he said. Okay. Are you going to accept it? That depends on what she's apologizing for. If she's apologizing for entering the house, that's not enough. If she's apologizing for 5 years of dismissing my entire career and life, we might have something to talk about. She's struggling with the fact that she didn't know. She didn't want to know, Marcus. Every time I tried to explain that my work was classified, she turned it into a joke. Every time I said I couldn't discuss details, she decided that meant there were no details worth discussing. I know. Do you? Because Jennifer is still sending me texts about how I'm tearing the family apart over nothing. Over pride and stubbornness. She still thinks this is about me being difficult. Jennifer doesn't understand classification requirements. Jennifer doesn't want to understand. None of them do. They want me to be what they decided I should be, struggling, failing, embarrassing. Because that fit their narrative better than the truth. What is the truth? I thought about how to answer that. About the projects I managed, the systems I designed, the briefings I gave to people whose names most Americans would recognize. About the responsibility I carried every day, the secrets I protected, the infrastructure I built. The truth is that I've been doing meaningful work that matters to national security for 5 years, I said. And my family decided that because they couldn't brag about it at parties, it must not be real. That's the truth. Marcus was quiet. If Mom wants to apologize, I continued, tell her I'll listen. But I'm not pretending the last 5 years didn't happen. I'm not pretending that her disrespect for my work and my life was just a misunderstanding. She made choices. They had consequences. Fair enough. How's Dad handling it? He's angry. He thinks you're being vindictive. Of course he does. He's telling people you had them arrested. I didn't have them arrested. I had them processed for unauthorized entry to federal property, which they absolutely did commit. They're making themselves the victims. They feel like victims. They're not. They're people who faced consequences for ignoring boundaries and disrespecting someone they claim to care about. That's different. I hung up and sat in my newly secured house, in my federally protected workspace, surrounded by the evidence of success that my family had refused to acknowledge. My phone buzzed. An email from Jennifer. You've always been difficult. Mom and Dad were trying to help you and you turned it into this federal case because you can't handle anyone caring about you. You're going to end up alone in that house and then you'll realize how much you lost for nothing. I deleted it without responding. Then I opened my secure system and got back to work on the infrastructure project that would protect satellite communications for the next generation of intelligence operations. The project that mattered. The work that had always mattered. Some people would never see it. And that was their loss, not mine.